Today we're going to be taking a look at my Great Nature deck profile. Stand up, Vanguard. Okay, good day internet people, and here we are, or here I am rather, because it's just me, Jess, here today. I realised I hadn't done a deck profile for my Great Nature, so I thought why not do that now. So it is a little bit experimental in places, but it's been pretty consistent so far. I have made a few changes that I'm yet to test, so bear with me on a few of the choices, which might seem a little bit unusual, but I'm building it a little bit more defensively than traditional. So here we go. Obviously, the starter is Blackboard Parrot. When raid upon, draw a card. That goes without saying because that's the only skill that starters have at the moment. So let's put Blackboard Parrot to the side. Oh, and by the way, this is an Excel clan. I generally use 4 Excel tokens in a game. Sometimes it goes to 5. I've never needed 6 in a game. So this generally is enough for me. You could quite feasibly get 6 or more, but I've rarely had a game go long enough to need that many. Okay, into the trigger lineup. We run 1, 2, 3, 4 heals because you kind of have to. I run 4 draw PGs, again because at the moment it's the done thing. I run 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 crits. And I run 2 fronts. The fronts are mainly there to throw my opponent off if it happens. They kind of probably are expecting crits. With Leopold generating his own crits and these 6 crits in a deck, your opponent doesn't really want to risk taking your Vanguard hit. So it means that if they heavily guard that and then you get a front trigger, it can really throw off the rest of the turn when all of your other swings are well into the 20,000s. So that's why it's nice to have a few fronts mixed in my humble opinion. So those are the triggers. Let's put those to the side. Boosh. And now into the grade 1 lineup. We're going to start off with 4 Pencil Squire Hamskay. So Hamskay is a returning face from the olden days, and he was always a bit of like a ride chain. So this sort of does something similar. So basically, if you've got Pencil Hero Hamskay on the Vanguard, this unit on the rearguard gets plus 4k. And if it's on the rearguard at the end of turn, you can basically Soul Blast 1, put this unit into the soul, search for the grade 2 Hamskay, reveal it, put it into your hand, and shuffle your deck. So if you can get this Hamskay down on the first turn on the rearguard, even if you don't attack, you can still Soul Blast your starter, slip this guy in, find your grade 2, and then you've basically got your grade 1 and your grade 2 ready to go. And you'll see why that's important in a minute. Also on the grade 1 lineup, I run 2 Silver Wolf. Silver Wolf is basically your big bad booster. It's a 12k booster as long as it's on the back row. So otherwise it's an 8k if it's on the front row or on an Excel circle, which is fine. But it's nice to have a 12k behind the Vanguard because it means that your column's going to be 24 even if you don't gain any power. And 24 hits force numbers, so that's something you can always do with. So stick one of these behind the Vanguard and you can't go too far wrong. Next up, I run 2 Tank Mouse. This is a bit of a toolbox kit really. Tank Mouse, it's just there to kind of sit around. He doesn't necessarily boost for much, you don't want to attack with him particularly. But if you mill a card with one of your other card skills, this guy is useful to have the counterblast to bring that card back to the hand, particularly if it's something like a heal trigger, a perfect guard, or a new grade 3 to ride. Those are my main 3 that I'll pull out. If it's a normal unit, other than that, I'll generally leave it in the drop zone. But with these, you can get those all-important cards that you mill when you see something that you actually want go in there. Even if you actually just against an Excel clan and you need a lot of shield and you see a crit trigger go down, you can be like, yeah, actually I will counterblast because that will be useful in hand. So it's nice and situational. It is once per turn, so you can't like just spam it, but that's fine because you can go through your counterblasts fairly quickly anyway. I run 2 Monoculous Tiger. Now, Monoculous Tiger is when he attacks or boosts, he can do a mill. If it's a normal unit, your opponent cannot call sentinels, and if it's a trigger unit, they can only guard with trigger units against that attack. So it's a little bit of guard restrict. It doesn't work behind the Vanguard, so that's why you kind of want your Silver Wolf behind the Vanguard. Honestly, he's not too bad on an Axel circle, swinging for 18 with guard restrict. I mean, it can be a little bit annoying to make your opponent drop one of their all-important triggers for an 18k attack when all they need is a 10 or something. But yeah, that's what he's for. I don't really run many of him now. I was running 4, but the deck was milling far too quickly when I was using it, and to be honest, the guard restrict doesn't work that well unless the column is huge. So yeah, that's why I don't run that many of him. What I do run more of now is the classic Stamp Sea Otter. Now, he doesn't work with the way Great Nature works now. Obviously, in the past, Stamp Sea Otter was the guy that you'd give you plus 4k to and the draw skills or whatever. And at the end of the turn, he wouldn't have to retire, but you'd still get to draw your cards and you'd still have benefited from the power boost. So he was good for that. You can't really do that in this build. However, that's not to say Stamp Sea Otter is without use. For example, let's say you're playing against a Shadow Paladin deck and your opponent's on Phantom Blaster Dragon and they want to deal you that 1 damage for free by Soul Blasting a grade 3. If this guy is down on the back row, this guy cannot be retired. It doesn't say he can't be chosen, but he can't be retired. And he basically sticks around and means that your opponent cannot get in that 3 damage against you. You just can't do it. Can't get rid of this guy. The 3 damage is just lost to him, and he basically sitting on Phantom Blaster with his... He gets his plus 15 in the crit, but he doesn't get anything else. It means if this is down on the back row early and your opponent uses something like Blaster Dark, where you get to choose what retires, you'd be like, I choose this. Nothing happens. So it's a bit of a foil to certain clans. Again, Kagro don't necessarily like it. Anything that has a retirement skill, this guy's a nice little anti-that, basically. He can still be locked, if lock is a thing. It's probably not, but it can still be bound by stuff like Narukami and Link Joker, let's say that. If you were playing on premium, yes, he could still be locked. Over to the grade 2s. I run 1, 2, 3, 4. Pencil Knight Hamskate, the grade 2 Hamskate. I was running 3 of these, but I've pushed it back up to 4 for a few consistency reasons. Firstly, it's nice to have something that you can just call to the rearguard by putting a grade 1 in the soul, get this guy down at the end of your turn. If nothing else, you stick him on a circle and he just acts as an intercept for you for a turn, which is nice. It's basically free shield out of thin air. However, if he's on the rearguard and your Vanguard is the grade 3 Hamskate, he gets plus 3k, so he sits at a base 12. And during the battle it attacked, if Pencil Squire Hamskate is in your soul, so basically if this is on the Vanguard and the grade 1's inside, this unit gets plus 5k, so it's swinging at 14k without a boost, which is pretty nice. If your opponent's got to grade 3 already somehow, like maybe they're on Azel or something, that can really sort of put a crimp on their defensive thing, where normally you'd have to throw down a booster to hit them on grade 2. So that's pretty nice. And again, it's important, out of all the Hamskates you've got in the deck, it's important that you get this on your grade 2 ride, because if he's not in your grade 2, you can't then retroactively add him into the soul like you can with the grade 1. The grade 1 can just whoosh itself in, but if you're on grade 3, you can't then get this guy back into the soul. So yeah, if you don't ride this guy for grade 2, basically you're not going to get your special Hamskate abilities off, and it's just a nice thing that you can easily call down to the rearguard. But I like it, so there you go. And if I like it, that's all that matters, right? 4 of possibly one of the MVPs of the deck. It's Binoculous Tiger, grade 2, 9k. On the Vanguard and the rearguard, when it attacks the Vanguard, you can counterblast 1, put a top card of your deck into the drop zone, and perform one of the effects below. If it's a normal unit, you draw a card. If it's a trigger unit, you retire one of your opponent's rearguards. And then 3 of the units in your front row, you can pick this guy as well, get power plus 5k until the end of turn. which is pretty nice. So either way, you can't go wrong. If you're against a deck that's got a lot of stuff on the opposite field, then obviously the trigger unit is something that you probably want to get. If your opponent hasn't exactly got much down, then a normal unit would be ideal. The only thing that could possibly make this card better, in my opinion, is some way to have a look at the top card of the deck before you use it. If Great Nature had some kind of Oracle skill, this guy could be absolutely ridiculous. If you knew what was coming, you could kind of plan around it a little bit. As it is, you do have the luck of the draw, so you might get the wrong thing off. As a rule, the normal unit, draw a card, hasn't got a particular time when it would be bad. An extra card in hand is an extra card in hand, right? So, and all it's cost you is a counterblast and a mill. And don't forget, when you mill, you can always use your tank mouse to counterblast one and bring the unit you've milled back to hand. So you might end up with 2 cards in hand extra, just essentially when this guy attacks, which is pretty nice. I run 2 Geograph Giant. Basically, he's a 9k grade 2, but if he's on an Excel circle, he becomes a 17k base even on your opponent's turn. Very nice indeed. Yeah, not much to say. It's a very simple skill, but he is a brilliant card. Against Excel clans, then that's just a really nasty number to have to deal with. Now, this is where I was using Barcode Zebra. And this is where probably everybody else in the world uses Barcode Zebra. Now, I'm not using Barcode Zebra right now. I've got 2 of these, Toolbox Wallaby. Now, this guy is a 9k, but when he intercepts, he gets plus 10k shield until the end of that battle. So it's a 15k intercept. Now, on the surface, it's like, yeah, okay, it's a nice 15k shield, but not a big deal because you can just throw down the trigger for a 15k shield, right? Yeah, kind of. However, there's a big push, and I don't know if you've noticed this, there's a big push in the game where a lot of cards attack, and they say you have to guard with 2 or more cards from hand if you would guard, which means that they might be swinging and it's a 5 or 10k guard, or maybe a 15k guard, but you're going to have to throw down 3 or 2 or 4 cards in the case of a certain VR to guard an attack, which is pretty silly. Was that 3 or 4 for Spinning Valiant? I can't remember. It might be 3 cards. Either way, it's pretty silly. Now, if you've got this guy down, your opponent's like, okay, you need 10 to guard, but you have to throw down 3 cards from the hand. You're like, well, actually, I'm just going to intercept that. 15. So that's why he's there. It's a little bit situational, and most of the time he's probably going to be sitting on an Excel circle just swinging for 19, which, you know, it's not a bad little poke, I suppose. But that's what he's there for, really. It's kind of an early defensive measure against this effect as it becomes more prevalent. We saw it with Battledore Fighter, and we've seen it with Solid Turtle, is it, for Gold Paladin? I can't remember if it's Solid Turtle or something else. But whatever that turtle is called that has that same guard restrict ability, this is a little counter to that. And again, I only run 2 because I'm testing it out. If they turn out to be really useful in the current kind of format coming up, then I might increase that to 3. That's going to be subject to play testing. Finally, we're on to the grade 3s. I run 2 Pencil Hero Hamskay. Now, I could run 4 of these, but again, the problem is, as I said earlier, if you don't have your grade 2 ride, he's a bit of a dead card. He doesn't do anything if you've got the wrong grade 2 down in the soul. So, and he doesn't have to be your first ride if the grade 2 isn't a soul. So you can get away with running 2 and just when he comes along, ride him if these circumstances are right. So I should probably read what he does. Basically, when he's placed on the Vanguard circle, if you've got both Hamskays in the soul, you can discard 2 cards from your hand. You get an imaginary gift Excel in addition to the one you got for the turn. And then search your deck for up to 1 grade 1 and grade 2 Hamskay, call them to rearguard and shuffle your deck. So in an ideal world, when he comes down, whether or not he's the first ride, you've got the grade 1 and a 2 in the soul. You just ditch 2 cards from hand. You get yourself essentially 2 new Excel circles over the course of this turn. And you've called yourself out a grade 1 and a grade 2, maybe to those Excel circles. Each of those will be getting the +3 and the +4 from having him on the Vanguard circle. So essentially you've got like 22k, 22k and this. And it's a nice little rush engine if you want to kind of really hit hard with lots of swings quite early on in the game, or late game it can just get you that one extra Excel circle, which makes things a little bit too hard to guard for your opponent. So I like that. Next up is a little bit of not my favourite card in the deck. It's probably my least favourite ride, actually. Armed Instructor Bison. He's not necessarily terrible. On the Vanguard or Rearguard, you can counterblast one when he attacks to give one of the other Rearguards plus 5k. If he's on the Vanguard circle, you can stand that Rearguard as well. So it's an easy restand, and you know, yeah, I mean, it gets a little bit of power as well, but it's not a brilliant card, but there's no real gift possessing alternatives for Great Nature just yet. We're going to have to wait for the next round of support to see where Great Nature goes in terms of replacing this guy. Again, he's not terrible. It gets you an extra attack each turn, so yeah, it is what it is. And finally, the actual MVP of the deck, School Hunter Leopold, 4 of, obviously. So, if you have a grade 3 in the soul, his auto abilities activate twice. So basically, when you ride him and he's the first ride of the turn or the game, then he'll activate this skill once. Any other time, if you're riding him over another grade 3, including himself, then you get to use this skill twice. So, what is the skill? It's very much like the grade 2 and the grade 1 Tigers. So, when placed, put the top card of your deck into your drop zone and perform one of the effects below depending on that card's type. If it's a normal unit, you can look at 4 cards from the top of the deck, call up to 2 grade 2 or less cards from among them to rearguard and shuffle your deck. If it's a trigger unit, he gets plus 15k and a crit until the end of turn. Now, neither of those skills is bad, especially considering you're not counterblasting or soul blasting or anything for this skill, you're just doing it when he's placed. Either of those is good. Now, if you're really, really lucky and your field's been emptied by your opponent, then you can just end up getting 2 normal units on your mill and fill your entire field for basically nothing, which is always fun. Or you might end up stacking 30k and 2 crit on him, or you might get one of each skill. So, you know, either way, you don't know what you're going to get, but either result's good. You can't really complain, unless your opponent's got a perfect guard and you've got no rear guards and you just end up with a bunch of crits on him that are never going to hit in a million years. That's probably the worst case scenario. Best case scenario, you just call a bunch of units down, and because it's calling normal units that are, is it normal units or just units that are grade 2 or less, basically. You basically leave triggers in a deck, leave any, and just pull out anything that's not a trigger, and it's a nice bit of deck thinning. If that happens twice, then you might have 4 normal units coming out of the deck and just triggers going back, and you're shuffling your deck at the end of that. So this one can really help you thin your deck and get those triggers, the all-important triggers, towards the end of the game. So that's Leopold, and that is my standard Great Nature deck, and a few of the reasons for my choices therein. So, what do you think? Do you think I'm an idiot for running the Toolbox Wallaby, and I should be running Barcode Zebras because of the nice power stacking they can do? Or do you think I'm going the right direction with that, kind of future-proofing my deck for these new guard restrict things that are going to be extra prevalent in the coming weeks and months? Where do you think the game is going to be going, and where do you think Great Nature might go in future support? Do you think they're going to get anything that kind of changes the way they play? Or do you think we'll get a new grade 3 which really just doubles down on what we're doing here and makes it even more of a random but amazing sort of effect deck? I'd love to know what you thought about the future of Great Nature in the game. And yeah, also the chap from the school council in the anime uses this, the trump card. So no doubt we'll get to see that soon as well. Anyway, I've been rambling on. It's hit basically about 20 minutes, so I should probably get off. Thanks for watching Internet people. It's been lovely to have you around. Leave us a like and a comment and a subscribe and all that lovely goodness. And I'll see you next time. Bye, Internet people.
Kamui here. Thanks for watching Draw the Trigger. Here's another video you might enjoy.